Get my 6. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Homesteading Off the Grid, the most popular homesteading channel on the entire internet that has absolutely nothing to do with homesteading. So, I don't know if y'all knew this or not, but a grizzly bear can actually smell a Snickers bar inside its wrapper from 1 mile away. Well, I have a son who can smell a Snickers bar inside a wrapper from 2 miles away. Matter of fact, his nickname is Eat Monster because this kid loves to eat. And he burns it off. He's active. He plays multiple sports. So it doesn't stick with him. Problem is, though, I only had one Snickers bar left. I have a sweet tooth. You know, if you follow the channel for any amount of time, you know I'm very active. I love to run and mountain bike and hike and do all these things and work on my property. So it doesn't stick with me either. See, if the fire's hot enough, the furnace will burn it. That's one of the benefits of living an active lifestyle. You can pretty much eat what you want. It doesn't stick with you. Still got to be responsible, though. So anyway, so I was out here this morning. I'd finished my coffee and I had my Snickers bar with me. I got my chair here. I'm sitting at the head of the pond here. Show you my view. Enjoying the pond and some bamboo I planted there and cleared up this part of my property here this spring. We're using it more than we have in recent years. It's good for shade, especially as it's getting hotter now, moving towards summer. So I had my Snickers bar out here and I went in the house to do something or other. Come back and it was gone. Well, I guess you'd say, well, clearly your son took it. Well, clearly not, because he's in school. So I went back and I sell him for a Reese's cup. But the whole thing reminded me of a story. It reminded me about a story about a candy bar thieving Bigfoot Sasquatch. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't. So I'm going to tell it to you now, but we're going to set a trap. Yeah, get my 6. You never know what you may or may not see back here. But let's try to lure him, her, it, or they out with a Reese's cup. We'll put it right there over on the other side of the creek. There, you keep your eyes on that. Well, I hope spring is as beautiful where you are as it is where I am. Shoot, I just sat out here and admire the beauty of nature. Next thing I know, the day's over. My son's coming home and I ain't got a whole lot of stuff done. But I reckon I'll get this storytelling done. This story is part of the collection Bigfoot Sasquatch Files Anthology 1. This is volumes 1 through 10 combined. I think we're on part 15. All this stuff's been put on the back burner because I'm working on something trying to get done by the end of the year that I've been working on for a couple of years. But you can get these on Amazon. I think you got to go to our Etsy store to get a print copy, which would be autographed for you if you get it. But this story is called Homesick, and it actually was sent in by a viewer. It's from a letter dated December 2, 2020. We closed our P.O. box. We were just inundated with gifts and mail and all that, and as appreciative and grateful as we are for all of it, we had 2 spare bedrooms upstairs getting full of stuff, so we had to close that down. But this viewer got to us there while we still had a P.O. box, and this is their story. Dear, did you hear that? We're not alone. You keep getting my 6. If you see anything, timestamp it for other viewers. Dear Kevin, I can't remember when or why I started watching your channel. I know I've been a regular viewer for about 3 years now, so I must have started watching before all this Bigfoot Sasquatch stuff, as you call it, started. I remember why I kept watching, though. Your videos made me homesick. I have lived my whole life in Morgantown, West Virginia. I know our states border each other. I'm down here in Virginia. But it's quite a drive from where I live down to your neck of the woods. I know this well because my parents were both from the southwestern part of Virginia, a town named Christiansburg, which is not too far from Blacksburg. I know that place. I've been there. Home of those dreaded Virginia Tech Hokies. Go Cavs. As you might imagine, being a West Virginia mountaineer, I hate the Hokies as much, if not more, than you probably do since you live in Charlottesville or thereabouts. However, don't think for a minute that I am any fan of the UVA Cavaliers, because I'm not. Okay, sports talk aside, and honestly, I don't really care about any of it, but I know you like your UVA hats. I do. I got them in just about every color they make. Watching your videos, especially the ones that have you and your wife and your son in them on your homestead, brings back so many memories from the summers I would spend with my grandparents down in Christiansburg. The videos you guys have made of fishing on the local rivers in your area reminds me of all the times my grandfather would drive us over to the New River on the southern border of West Virginia to go fishing. Those years, some 50 years past now, were a magical time in my life. I'll admit that once you started this Bigfoot Sasquatch stuff originally, I unsubscribed from your channel. I'm sorry to say, but I also left a comment on the last video I watched telling you that I was unsubscribing. I know that you banned me because when I returned to your channel only a few months later, it was winter and I was up to my ass in snow and I couldn't stay away from the views of those much milder winters in Virginia that I could see daily on your channel. I tried to comment and I could not. I don't blame you for banning me. I was negative. I could have unsubscribed and moved on, but I felt that I had to get a dig in at you. It was immature, and I'm sorry. I can't imagine how many vertically challenged individuals who live under bridges you have to deal with, and it wasn't right for me to have been one of them. If you ever feel like unbanning me, my YouTube user ID is FatJack55. I promise I won't do it again. Now, with sports talk and past grievances aside, it's time for me to get to my point. Like you, I've always had an issue with that, but alas, we're two salty old souls adrift in this great vast universe who are meant to be connected. Potentially, he. It's an Appalachian American thing, taking, a page and a half to say what could be said in a sentence. Bullfrog thought it was funny. I had completely forgotten about all the stories that my grandfather used to tell my sister and me when we'd go camping at night, either on our grandparents' farm or on the banks of the New River. It was only during this past Thanksgiving, when I was talking to my sister on the phone, daggone COVID, that I was reminded, because she reminded me. Sadly, once I'd reached my teens, I no longer wanted to go to my grandparents' place down in Christiansburg for the summers. I had friends. I had a girlfriend, who, by the way, is now my wife, and I was playing sports. The last thing I wanted to do was hang out with an old couple who had funny accents. Listen to me, a dumb hillbilly, as I know you know, we're known as outside of West Virginia, calling the kettle black, who sat on their porch talking about how danged hot it was most of the summer and listening to what I thought was a half-crazy old man telling stories about things that do not exist most evenings. The summer of my senior year of high school, my sister, 2 years younger than me, went and spent the summer alone with my grandparents. Our parents had recently gotten divorced, a rare occurrence in my youth, but an event my generation, the baby boomers, would make quite popular. And I guilt-shamed my mother into allowing me to stay in Morgantown. She worked almost all the time, so I got to spend all my time with my girlfriend. We ended up getting in trouble, if you know what I mean, and it sped up the I-do's at the altar, but I don't regret any of it. And I'm proud to say that she and I are still together, having never participated in the divorce game, and we have 3 kids, all of which are about your age. My little sister came back with quite the tale at the end of that summer. Allegedly, she and our grandfather, while out camping early in the summer, were visited by someone or something that would walk circles around their tent at night. At first, they thought it was a deer or a bear passing through. However, the first night it happened for the entire night. Whatever was walking around the tent did not want to leave until just before dawn. Our grandfather had fallen asleep, convinced that what they were hearing was merely an animal, but my sister, she told me, was too scared to sleep. I know Morgantown is not a big city as far as big cities go, but we did live in the middle of town, and we didn't have deer walking around in our yard at night. A week later, my sister and grandfather went camping again. They were camping on our grandparents' property, so the likelihood of what they'd heard being a trespasser was small. You know, living in Virginia yourself, that people there do not trespass because they know they are more likely to get shot for so doing than not, and that was even more true back in those days. Anyway, my sister and grandfather tried an experiment. They left a half a dozen apples out about 20 yards from the tent, as well as a candy bar. Yes, a candy bar. My little sister thought the idea of leaving a candy bar out was as crazy as you probably do reading this, but my grandfather's point was that any animal could eat the apples without leaving any sort of trace of what specifically at the apples, but if anything ate the candy bar, you would clearly be able to tell it was an animal by the way it would have to maul the wrapper to get the food inside. Most animals, my grandfather said, wouldn't even touch a candy bar. The next morning, my sister and grandfather found no apples and only the wrapper from the candy bar, and it had not been mauled and gnawed on as if from an animal, like a bear or a raccoon. It had been opened neatly by someone or something which obviously had opposable thumbs. When my sister and grandfather told me of this tale, when I went down to Christiansburg with my mother to pick my sister up at the end of that summer, I thought it was all just a bunch of bull they'd made up in order to make me feel guilty for not having gone down and spent the summer on my grandparents' farm. I did not believe it for a minute, and I let them know about it. They didn't seem to care that I didn't believe. They said it would... There's the crows. How many times have we seen them on his channel come in with the crows? Keep watching back there. They said it would always be something special between the two of them. They didn't care that I didn't believe. When they made not a single effort to try to convince me to believe, I thought there might actually be some truth to it. I would go on to college after high school, go Mountaineers. I guess that means he went to WVU. And my grandfather passed away during my senior year. My grandmother passed away only 6 months later. We believe she died of a broken heart, as she and my grandfather had been together since childhood. I attended my grandfather's funeral. It was actually held at his farm. He'd wanted to be buried at the top of a hill overlooking the old farmhouse. Ironically, it was one of those locations where we'd often camp when I'd spent the summers there, and it was the same location where he and my little sister had claimed to have had their experience with what I jokingly call the candy bar eating Bigfoot, which I'm sure you'd call the candy bar eating Bigfoot Sasquatch. Yes, I would. There were not a whole lot of people in attendance for my grandfather's funeral. He was a shy, private man. He didn't have many friends, but the ones he had were close. Ironically, I think that's another reason I found myself drawn to your YouTube channel. You kind of remind me of him. After the funeral, a few people walked over and put flowers beside the headstone of my grandfather's grave. My little sister placed a candy bar on top of it. Though the jury of my mind was still out on the validity of their story from years before, I found her gesture sweet and sincere, and it brought tears to my eyes. That evening, my little sister and I sat on the old porch swing on the front porch of the old farmhouse. We talked well into the night, mostly reminiscing about all the summers we'd spent on the farm. We went to bed just before midnight. Sometime in the middle of the night, I was awakened by what sounded like a loud stomp on the front porch. The room my sister and I were sleeping in was the master bedroom of the house, which was on the first floor. The window looked out over the porch. After hearing the stomp, I raised my head to look out the window, but it was pitch black dark outside. There was no moon. I could see nothing. I lay my head back on my pillow and went back to sleep as quickly as I had awakened. The next morning, I rose early. I wanted to take advantage of seeing the sunrise over my grandparents' farm, so I made my way out to the front porch and I sat in the old porch swing. When I rested my hands beside me on the swing, I felt something with the fingertips of my left hand. I instinctively wrapped my fingers around what was there and I raised it to my face. It was a candy bar wrapper. To this day, I have no idea how the candy bar wrapper got on the swing. I never asked my sister about it, for you see, part of me believed the story she and our grandfather had told me. I erred to the side of caution, and I viewed the wrapper as having been left as a message from my sister, so I left it on the swing. I watched shortly after my sister woke that morning as she, too, made her way to the porch swing. I peered through the bedroom window, making sure to do so from the opposite side of the room as the window so that my sister would not see me, and I saw that she took up the wrapper, and when she did, she cried. At long last, I had my answer as far as whether or not their story had been true. I also believe that I've had confirmation about their story being true. Did I see the Bigfoot Sasquatch myself? No. Then what's the confirmation? My sister never mentioned the wrapper that she found on the porch swing to me, and to this day I've never asked her about it. As they say, some things are better left unsaid, and in this case I believe that what is being left unsaid is the truth. Kevin, thank you so much for the time you put into making your videos. The memories some of them have brought back to me are worth a priceless fortune. I would imagine there are better things you could be doing with your time, but I, for one, appreciate every minute that you put into your videos. Though you've banned me, I'll be a viewer for life. Kindest regards, J.S., Morgantown, West Virginia. So there you have it, folks. Are these things real? These potential Bigfoot Sasquatches? Who knows? But if you like that story, this is the single largest collection of Bigfoot Sasquatch stories ever written in the English language. One of my many achievements in life. You can get it on Etsy in print, or you can go to Amazon and get it in Kindle. You can get all my other books in Kindle and print on Amazon. So let us know if you saw anything in the background, and I'm going to go get that Reese's and eat it before my son gets home from school and eats it himself. See you for more next time.
It's gone.